Yeah. You live in a mess, I give you drift, you give me ride, okay. You said you're gonna slide, never divide.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Sew with Tifa. If you're new here, I'm Latifa and thank you for joining me. In today's video, we'll be learning how to make this notch collar jacket, which is actually what I have on right now. Guys, take a look at this jacket. It is so pretty. And let me tell you something, you are in for some good stuff because you're not only going to be learning how to make this jacket in this video, you'll also be learning how to get a neat finishing in your jacket. This video is going to be the pattern drafting of this jacket. I wanted to make both pattern drafting and sewing tutorial as one video, but I realized it's going to be too long, so I chopped it into two. I'll leave the link to the sewing in the description. So once you're done watching this video, make sure you go watch the sewing part of the tutorial so you can know how to join your jacket together. And if you also like my palazzo pant that I pair with this jacket, I have a tutorial on how to make that here on my channel. This channel is a full package, okay? And which is why you have to make sure you subscribe to the channel and give me a thumbs up so that YouTube can keep recommending this video to other potential subscribers and those that might learn from it. Without wasting much of our time, let's get started. To get started, from the tip of my pattern, I marked 8 inches downward like this. And this 8 inches will be where we'll be extending our collar to. So this line right here, my pattern will be starting from here. Then my collar extension will be for this part. You can make it 6 inches, okay? But make sure you have at least 6 inches at the top of your pattern. And right here, I marked 4 inches. From the center right here, I marked 4 inches inward and create a straight line. This space right here will be our lapel extension, okay? We'll be extending our lapel into this space. So this space is for the lapel and this space is for the collar, and right here is where you draft your basic bodice pattern. I hope you understand. What I'll do next is to start marking my measurements. So I have my bust point, which is 10 inches, my waist 16.5, my hip length, which is 25 inches, and the length of my jacket, which is 35 inches. Then I'll add additional 2 inches hemming allowance to the bottom, and that is 37 inches. And I'll create a straight line with all these markings. So this is my bust point. I'm just gonna write B, and this is my waist, and this is my hip, and this is the hem length, and this is the allowance for the bottom part. I'll come to this line right here and place my shoulder measurement. My shoulder is 15 inches. You divide it by 2, and I'll add additional half of an inch and mark that right here. Then I'll come down by 1 inch under this line like this. Can you see that? And here, this line right here, I'll mark 3 inches, and that's gonna be my neck width, 3 inches. And I'll connect it to this 1 inch. Now, from the 1 inch below the shoulder, I'll mark my armhole length. You get that by dividing your bust measurement by 6 plus 1.5, and mine will be 8 inches right here. Then I'll create a straight line, okay, like this. You create a straight line like that, and you extend this out. Okay, I hope you understand that. Now I'll find the midpoint between here, and you know this line is 8 inches, and the midpoint will be 4 right here. So you come in by half of an inch right there, okay? And on this line, you place your bust measurement divided by 4 right here, and you create your armhole curve from this line to the half of an inch here, and you touch this point like this. Now I'll come to this line and mark my nipple to nipple measurement inward. So my nipple to nipple is 8 inches. I'll divide that by 2, and I'll have 4 inches. So I'll mark 4 here and also 4 at my hip line. And I'll create a straight line like that. So here at the waist, I'll mark half of an inch on both sides to create my dart. So half of an inch here and half of an inch here. And here at the bust, I'll come down by 1 inch. You see that? Then I'll connect it to this 1 inch. And I'll also connect from here to the hip. Now I'll go ahead and start placing my measurement. So bust divided by 4, then I'll add my 1 inch sewing allowance to that right here. Then I'll come to my waist and mark my waist measurement divided by 4, and I'll add 1 inch sewing allowance right there. And I'll also measure the dart that I have here. I have 1 inch, then I'll replace that 1 inch this way. Okay, your waist divided by 4, your 1 inch sewing allowance, and your 1 inch dart allowance. Okay, at the hip, my hip measurement divided by 4 and plus my 1 inch sewing allowance. Now whatever I have here at the hip, so I have 11.5, I'll place that right at the hem line. Okay, so I'm just gonna put 11.5 right here. Then I'll connect all my lines, so from the bust to the waist to the hip and to the hem. Now I'll create my neckline by coming down from the tip right here by 3 inches. Okay, so 3 inches by, you already marked 3 inches right here, and you curve it like that. Then I'll come here and mark 1 inch this way, 1 inch all the way down, 1 inch. Now I'll mark my break point, and that's where I want my lapel to end. I want mine to end at the waist right here. So from this point, I'll connect it to my shoulder right here. So now I'll come to this part right here and extend this line by additional 1.5 inches. You can make it 1 inch, 2 inches, depending on how wide you want your lapel to be. I want mine to be 1.5 inches extra, and I'll extend the line to the 1.5 inches like that. Then from here, I'll connect it to this break point. Now you see that our lapel is already forming, so this line right here is no longer needed. This is the line that we'll be cutting through. Now you measure around your back neckline, whatever you have there. I have 3.75, so I'll place that 3.75 starting from this part upward. Okay, starting from my shoulder upward this way. Okay, 3.75, and you notice that I'm placing it in a slant way. I make sure like the tape is aligning with this line that I have here this way. You mark it right here. Okay, and you use your ruler to connect that with this line. Now from this line, I'll go ahead and mark 1/2 inch this way, like this. Okay, and I'll connect the 1/2 inch to this point like this. And from this 1/2 inch, you mark the width of your collar. For me, I want to use 3.5 inches. You can make it 4 depending on how wide you want it. And also, I'm not marking it straight like this. You also want to mark it in a slant manner. Okay, make it slant this way. And I'll mark my 3.5 inches right there from this line right here. So I'll cancel this one so you don't get confused. So from this line, you mark 3.5 inches and you connect that. Now I'll come to the neckline right here and I'll go up by 1/2 inch. You can also make this 1 inch depending on how wide you want the notch area to be. So mine will be 1/2 inch, and from this line right here, I'll connect it to this 1/2 inch from this one. So go this way, and now you connect from here to this part. And look at how beautiful that looks. The color is coming out nice, and our lapel also looks really good. So now our pattern is ready. We can go out and cut this out this way. but I want to add a shoulder dart to my pattern, and what that would do is make me have two pieces of the front instead of one piece. Okay, you don't have to do that if you don't want a two piece, you just want it to be one whole piece. You just leave it like this and cut it out. For the shoulder dart, I'll divide whatever I have here by 2, so I have 5 inches, and I'll be dividing it by 2, that's 3.5. Then from my bust point, I'll connect it to this shoulder dart this way. Okay, and also I'll extend this line straight down. I'll go in with my marker to highlight all the markings that I have on my pattern. The reason why I used pencil is for me to be able to, clean any mistake that I make while drafting the pattern. Okay, now that I'm done tracing out all the lines, I'm ready to cut my pattern out. So I want you guys to really pay attention now, because you don't want to cut the wrong lines. So we'll be cutting the bottom right here all the way here. Okay, then we'll cut this out, then we'll cut this way. You cut the armhole and you cut all the way here. Then you come ahead and cut this way, and you cut out your dart all the way here, and you cut this other side of the darts too. So now you have 2 pieces. So now this is what we have after cutting our pattern out. You see, this way. So you have 1, 2, and this is the color. So the color goes right here, and you see how that looks really pretty. This is gonna come out really beautiful. So now we'll cut our back pattern. Now for the back pattern, we are basically repeating everything we did for the front without the lapel and collar. So I'll go ahead and mark my bust point 10 inches, under bust 16.5, hip length 25 inches, length of my jacket 35 inches, and 2 inches hemming allowance. And I'll create a straight line. Then I'll come to my shoulder and mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2 plus half of an inch right here, and I'll go down by 1 inch this way. Then here I'll mark 3 inches like we did for the front pattern for our neckline, and I'll connect that to this 1 inch. Then I'll come down by 2 inches for my neck depth. We use 3 inches for the front, but for the back we'll be using 2 inches, and connect it to the neck width like that. Then I'll go to my armhole and mark my armhole length, which is 8 inches. You remember we also use 8 inches for the front. Then I'll create a straight line right there. Then I'll connect it to my shoulder straight up like that. Now I'll input my bust measurement divided by 4. Then I'll measure the midpoint of my armhole, which is 4 inches right there, and I'll connect it to my bust measurement over there. If you remember, for the front pattern we came in by half of an inch and curved it, and that is to eliminate having bulge at the armhole area. But for the back you don't have to do that, just connect it straight up like that. Then now I'll add my 1 inch sewing allowance to the bust line like that. So this is my bust, waist, hip, and hem length at the bottom. Now I'll go ahead and input my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, which is 8 inches, and now I have 4. So I'll mark that at the waist and at the bust, and also on the hip line and straight at the bottom part of the pattern. Then I'll create a straight line. Now I'll mark my dart, which is half of an inch on both sides on the waist, and I'll go ahead and connect that straight up to the bust like this, and I'll do the other side. Then I'll connect my dart to my hip also. Now I'll go ahead and input my measurement. So bust divided by 4, I already marked that. Then I had 1 inch sewing allowance. I'll go to the waist and mark my waist measurement divided by 4. I'll add my dart intake, which is 1 inches, like that. And I'll also add 1 inch sewing allowance. Then I'll go to the hip and do the same thing. Hip divided by 4 inches, 1 inch sewing allowance. Then whatever I have on the hip, I'll place it at the bottom right there. We are repeating everything that we did for the front pattern to this pattern. Now I'll connect all my lines together. Then I'll come to my shoulder and measure whatever I have on my shoulder, 5 inches. I'll divide it by 2, and which is 2.5, and mark it there to create my shoulder dart. Then I'll connect that to my bust point. To show you guys that our front and back pattern is the same except for the collar and lapel, I'll place the patterns together and you'll realize that the side seam matches perfectly, okay? Look at that. To make the center back of our pattern lay flat, this is the center back right here. I'll go in by 1/2 inch on the waistline. Then I'll connect that up to the bust point and also down to the hip. And this will help the back really lay flat. And now we'll cut our pattern out. Now we are done with our pattern. This is the front. That's why I wrote FF and the arrow matching each other. Those are the back piece, BB, and the arrow matching each other. This part right here will be folded this way, and that will be our lapel. And we also have our collar at the top of the neckline. And that will be the end of the pattern drafting of this jacket. I'll leave the link to the sewing tutorial in the description below. Make sure you check that out so that you can know how to sew your jackets together. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you guys. If this tutorial has been helpful, make sure you give me a thumbs up, like, share, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.